Okay. It is 6:46. We're going to call the regular council meeting for Wednesday, November 8th, 2023 to order. Ms. Monroe, if you could call the roll.
Mayor Don Barnard.
Here.
John Merriman.
Here.
Sharon Hendren.
Here.
Charlie Campbell.
Here.
Nicole Shook.
Here.
Bob Orsini.
Here.
Ryan Green.
Here. If we could please stand for the invocation, Pastor Nick Shaner from the Faith Fellowship Church is going to lead us in prayer tonight.
Let's pray. Gracious God, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for your provision and goodness that's evident in our lives every day. Help us to see more of your hand. And God, we also thank you for your goodness of this community and these people that represent this community. And God, we pray for the leaders that have been brought on for this time and purpose. God, we pray that each one would lead with a desire to serve, that they would lead with grace and wisdom. God, would you help them? Help them to collaborate and to give them vision for all that is desired here in Johnstown. God, we pray for the coming days and weeks that there will be just continued blessings poured out upon your people in this community, God. Be with us tonight. Be with the conversations, the things that are brought up and discussed. May the decision makers be wise in their decision making, and God, may our hearts just be full of your love tonight. We pray for all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, I would like to recognize we have 4 outstanding citizens in our ranks tonight. We have Mr. Jeff Barr, who is now going to be a council member starting January 2nd. Ms. Tiffany Hollis. Mr. Dave Seelan. And Wes, and I can never say his last name right, Coble. I don't know if it's Coble, Cobble. So Wes Coble. Welcome on. So these 4 will be joining the ranks up here starting January 2nd. So I wanted to recognize them. Also, before we get moving, we're going to make a change to the agenda tonight. Under item 10, public hearings of legislation, we're going to move items B and C in front of item A. Just for the legalities of how things need to flow, B and C is moving forward in front of A. The next item on our agenda is action on minutes. We have received the minutes for October 17th, 2023. Do I have any changes or comments on those minutes from council? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second? I'll second.
Charlie Campbell.
Yes.
Nicole Shook.
Yes.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
John Merriman.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Monroe, do we have anybody for citizens' comments tonight?
Yes, I did get 3.
Okay.
Louis Main.
Louis,
Public
you're
comment.
up. You're up.
Kerslake.
Later, regarding legislation.
Okay. Next.
Darrell Warnett. Hold on up.
Take your time. Did you do it playing softball?
No, reffing soccer.
These things are going around.
I was happy to see other booths
Yes.
group today, so thanks for giving me a few minutes, everyone. Congratulations to those who won their elections, and thank you to those that will be moving off the council, and thank you for your service over these past years. I'm here to really make a request for us to continue to work on the Greater Johnstown Parks and Recreation District role in building a plan aligned with the city comprehensive plan. We've had a chance to be interviewed by MKSK, which was really valuable, and share some of the learnings that we've had through our partnership with the Pizzuti Group on the role that we play. And I think it's really important to understand how the joint district plays a role in extending the capabilities of this council beyond the reach of the boundaries of the city, and how it gives power to the schools to take control of land that are not for school development but provide for the community and the roles of those parks. I know you've got a lot of things on the agenda tonight around ordinances. One of the things that came up during our conversations is making sure that there are plans for how we capture those monies into the parks and recs, and I think the zoning conversation around the 405 acres certainly has some role in that as well. And I encourage you to consider, to think about how you can put in the right policies that make sure that we're capturing those opportunities for land or money for the community as we grow, as people come in to develop. So thank you for your partnership on that, as well as the work that we have to do to move our group to continuity of existence as opposed to being renewed every 10 years. I know that that's something that many of you are aware of, if not all. And frankly, it moves us from a neutered group to a group that can actually do the work for the people of this city. And it's how we can get people encouraged to join and submit their time and efforts to put forward for that Parks and Rec. So we're here as a part of this mission for the comprehensive plan, bringing the perspective, albeit different, an extension of the council. So thank you very much for your time.
One thing I'd like to say to you real quick. One of the things I've spoken to the JYA about, and I'm trying to get, I have a meeting with the schools next week, is to try to get a group of the schools, the city, the greater parks, and JYA to all come together and try to figure out how each can fit and blend as a puzzle piece for the city, and how we can best work together, what services is best for each one of them to handle, so that we each have our 4 key functions, but how can we work together best for the children of Johnstown? So that's something hopefully in the next month will get scheduled based on all 4 entities' time, so.
Awesome. I look forward to that, and I would say that I'm not sure that that is required to recognize the importance of the joint district and its need for continuity, independent of that meeting. I agree that's exactly how we have to work together in collaboration, but I view it as not a necessary stepping
Yeah.
stone towards the other. But
Yeah.
look forward to it. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Darryl, to your specific point about making sure that the park piece of the annexation development PD group, that was a point of conversation myself and others have had with the development company. It was received well. It was brought up with, we want to make sure that it is accounted for fairly and equitably and can last over time. And there was discussion, there was communication going back and forth to try to figure out how do you model that, right? So it wasn't lost. It is one of the primary points that as we finalize some of these discussions we've been going over, and from both the council's perspective, or at least mine on the council perspective, and the development group, that is a major point of conversation, and it's not met with contention. It's just met with how do we make this fair for everyone.
Perfect. Thank you. And actually, I'll put a chime out to Jeff for getting us connected with the Pizzuti Group, and then to Keith and Susan, because we've been working strongly with them, and I feel like we're coming up with a really good plan on how to put together a thoughtful, connected park system as our city is likely to grow, like where, obviously there are some things with land that we know about. How would that play in, especially with the gateway? How do we make sure it's connected and it doesn't make it feel like individual parts of the community, but one community? So that's our focus for y'all.
That was definitely part of the conversation, so that is on the minds of all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Monroe, who do we have next?
Frank Sia.
Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Frank Sia. It was great to hear those words because I happen to sit on the JYA board, so thank you so much, Donnie. I really just wanted to come and introduce myself as that olive branch as well, because I support the things that Darryl's talking about here. I've got a great honor and responsibility to help the youth in our community with athletics. I serve on the executive committee of the board, and I also serve as our soccer commissioner as well. As somebody that's relatively new to the Johnstown community as well, having grown up in Delaware, moved here early career, and now obviously have children in the schools, I think it's phenomenal to see what we've all got in front of us to grow and develop. So whatever the plans look like, I can't wait to support those ideas, contribute towards them in a positive way. And I also want to encourage, while that work is being done, to look at the economic opportunities that are there, not only specifically for soccer, but all of the sporting programs that we have to offer now. I've been in talks with our competitive leagues that run those leagues in the state, and I'm aware of the Ohio Soccer Association's desire to have a world-class facility located in central Ohio. Those facilities are currently located in Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and he has a pretty good understanding of what revenue opportunity exists there when those type of facilities and Parks and Rec facilities are also in existence. So thank you so much for having me this evening, and thank you so much for your public service as well.
Thank you. Anyone else who didn't sign a slip tonight? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Council committee reports. The first is planning and zoning. Their meeting on October 24th was canceled. Their next is November 14th. So there was nothing to report on that one. Design Review Board, their October 24th meeting was canceled. Again, they'll be meeting on 11/14 at 5:30. Safety and Service, their next meeting is December 5th. So if anyone would like to attend that one, that will be at 5 p.m. in the Administrative Conference Room. Finance, we met tonight for a special meeting. Our next meeting will be November 21st, 2023 at 5 p.m. As part of this finance, we will have a additional resolution that will be coming into the end of the meeting tonight. One of the items we did tonight, we listened to a insurance presentation from Rankin and Rankin tonight on some changes in our health insurance. It's something that we've been looking at, trying to get some changes to our insurance with the, not only who administers it, but the program, how much we pay, how much the employee pays. And I think we heard a proposal tonight that will definitely benefit the employee and benefit the city, and save the city up to, what, $150,000 a year?
Yeah.
Roughly
Yes,
about $150,000 a year, so,
There's a range, but yes.
yes. So it was a really good presentation, and hopefully we'll be working that into the budget in the next few weeks, so. But we will have a resolution coming at the end. Park and Rec, their next meeting, is that supposed to be, I'm guessing it's 12/6?
Well, we met Monday, and we did discuss the Miles Estate, which many of us are frustrated is taking so long. And we also discussed the amphitheater, which we do have a grant if we need to take advantage of it before June of 2024. Many of us would like to see that move on to work on that. And our next meeting, I believe, is December the 4th at 1 o'clock on Monday.
And speaking of the Miles Estate, there's a meeting Friday to discuss, the committee will be meeting Friday to discuss changes with the legal with that, so. There are upcoming things.
Time, please, on that?
It's just for the trust, the 5 members of the trust. It's no set time yet. They were just saying Friday possibly at this point. There was a time, but it's changed because of not everybody was able to meet it, so. Events Committee, their next meeting is November 15th at 5:30 in council chambers. Director reports. We received the water, sewer, street reports. Does anyone on council have any questions or comments? Anything you read in those reports that you would like more answers to? Hearing none. Mr. Liggett, if you could give an update on the director projects.
Yes, I will. The new water tower update, I'm to the point I'm reviewing the as-built drawings for the tower construction. I should have those done actually tomorrow. So at that point, we will begin to close out that project. I have told the engineers we'd like to get that project closed by or before the end of this year, so we can get it off our plate. The water plant update, the new water plant, I got a general schedule of design and plant construction. So again, it's very general. They're still going through the design portion of that, but I asked for an update, so if anybody would like to talk to me later about timeframes on that, I can talk with you about that. Wastewater plan update, reviewing design contract and awaiting approval. That's going to come up a little later this evening. Number 4, the East Jersey project. I had a final walkthrough with the contractor and engineer October 31st. There were a couple small items on the punch list. And again, I'm going to review the as-built drawings to make sure they are accurate to what was actually installed and put in the ground. Again, I would like to have this project closed out by the first part of December so we can get that finished up. Pulte housing, I know we wanted to move along a little quicker on that punch list, but there was a lot of items up there that had to be done. It is going well, a lot of the work is being completed, so we're hoping the punch list can be completed by 12/1 and do another walkthrough at that time. The last item I have is our Concourse East development expansion. The water, storm, and sewer installation is all going well and very close to being completed. Any questions on any of those major projects?
Quick question, you didn't mention it, but the traffic light there at, is it Bigelow, for the Pulte neighborhood, when do you expect that to be up and running?
I don't have the final completion of that, final date of completion when that's gonna be functional. Of course, I wanna talk to Safety Service about that before we put it into operation, but I will get that for you, Mayor.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for Mr. Liggett? Hearing none. We'll move over to our tabled legislation. The first item is Resolution 2023-30. I would like to make a motion to take this off the table so that we can discuss. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And Teresa is not in here. Sean, do you want to do the roll?
Sure can.
Oh, Thad, can you do it?
I got it if you want. Can we start that, or you got it?
Why don't you take care of it?
I got you. So this is just a motion to take it off the table, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Mr. Councilman Campbell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Shook,
Yes.
Councilman Orsini,
Yes.
Councilman Merriman,
Yes.
Councilman Bernard,
Yes.
Councilman Green,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hendren.
Yes.
Okay, so it's off the table, we come back to discussion. So the applicant has asked us to remove it from the table and to look at it tonight. With that being said, other things need to take place. I would like to make a motion that we do conditional approval of Resolution 2023-30, and that conditional approval is based on the approval of the PD district in which it would sit. Does that make sense? Okay. So that was my motion to do conditional approval of Resolution 2023-30 based on passage of ordinance 19-2023.
So just for clarification, if a motion were to be made, that would be your recommendation, but are you making the motion, or are you going to open this up for discussion amongst council?
I was going to do the discussion after. You want to do the discussion before?
So if a motion is made, then it would be a second.
Okay.
And then it would run through the process, but I
Okay.
hear what you're saying.
If you're making the motion.
Okay.
You're
so
making a recommendation.
I'm making a recommendation. We can go ahead and have discussion on this. First, starting with council, you guys having discussion on this annexation request?
And
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
Clarification. Discussion on making it approved conditionally or discussion on the merits of itself?
Both.
Okay.
Because it would be one motion.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes.
may, because these two pieces are relatively tied together, if you wanted to have a conversation with the applicant as their relative, like I said, to each other.
We can move it.
This may be the appropriate time,
move it,
if you wanted to jump to that right now,
So-
or you can, go ahead.
Well, we need to move with ordinance 2020-23 and ordinance 21-23
Why don't we move it
before we can get
behind
to
it?
ordinance 19-2023. So can we move resolution 2023-30
So behind 19.
behind 19-2023?
And the response I will give you is, there are council rules, and we follow council rules, but you get to make your own rules because you are council.
Thad?
So if you would desire to move things around, I believe you can.
He's trying to move it to.
I want to
one
move
to-
9A behind
Make
what
a
is now
motion- Make a
10C.
motion to amend the agenda.
Well, we don't have to make the motion to amend the agenda because the agenda is never
Oh,
approved
we
by
don't
us.
approve, that's right.
So the question is whether to move the resolution down to be after the consideration of the PD ordinance?
Yes.
If that's the will of council to do that, then.
Okay.
I would hesitate on doing that.
What's
I mean,
the,
and I see a hand up from council for the applicant, so they may have thoughts on it, given that it affects their property.
yes, go ahead. We're trying to do this in the order so it works logistically.
Absolutely. Well, I would say that if the annexation is decided after the zoning would be decided, that's backwards. We have to have the property in the city first. So I would say the annexation should come, the resolution consideration after the school district.
Correct.
Okay.
Agreements and before the zoning.
Okay. So we're going to do ordinance 2023 first, ordinance 2123 second, resolution 2023-30, and then ordinance 19-2023.
I track with where you're at, so.
Okay.
Teresa, do you track? And between the two of us, so they want to,
BC 9.
they want to go ordinance 19-2023.
No.
Ordinance
No.
2020.
Ordinance 2023 first.
Because you're moving 19
10B,
out.
10C, 9A, 10A.
Yeah.
Good. Got it? As long as you know where you're at.
We'll go along. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start with public hearings of legislation. Now that we've taken Resolution 2023-30 off the table, it is now on the table, but we're moving it to item number 3 on this list. So the first item is ordinance 2020-2023, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a compensation agreement between the city of Johnstown and the Johnstown Monroe Local School District. This is the second reading of this item, and we will open it up to discussion for council. But first, we will have the city manager explain this to everyone who does not understand it.
Now that I know where we're at, we should be okay, hopefully. It's been a long week. So what I'm going to pass down right now is some amendments that have been made to one of the agreements, just so you can review
Let
it.
me read all this out.
No, yes, Sharon, you're going to need to read it out loud for
Okay.
everyone in its entirety. I'll highlight the areas that have been modified, so that way you're not searching through and searching through the entirety of the document. Go ahead, Thad.
And Sean, I believe that what's being passed out is the Economic Development Incentives Agreement.
Correct.
Which is with the,
I wrote 20 or 21 on there.
There's nothing on this, but I know what you mean. This is the,
Sticky note.
somebody's got the sticky.
No, she has a sticky note.
21, it says 21.
It's for, that is for 21.
Right, and we're doing 20.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But they're tied together in some capacity.
I know this seems like it's all a cluster right now, but
It is,
there are so many legalities of how this ordinances and resolutions have to move in the order, what has to be passed first before something can go second.
okay. So, making sure we have all the documents. Teresa, did you print off the compensation agreement?
It's in the packet.
It's in it.
Yeah. Is that the newest and latest and greatest? And that's why I bring it up.
We changed it.
yeah,
This packet is all.
so there are changes to the compensation agreement that are not in the packet that was in the council packet. They reflect changes requested by the school district that would be accepted from a staff perspective and would be available for council review.
Can you identify
I
these?
will identify those with specificity for you.
It's on 20.
Go ahead. I'll run through them.
We're on 21.
20, you're on 20.
We're on 20?
I thought only
What
that,
is he on?
I thought only 21 changed, but I guess 20 changed.
So,
Okay, so
Okay,
it's
all right, we're on
20.
20, all right.
To be fair to Teresa, not myself, I'll take full blame, but to Teresa, a lot of these things came across the finish line while we were in committee meetings tonight. So her and I did not get an opportunity to dialogue beforehand. And as you saw us huddling before, we were trying to identify some of the issues, but haven't been able to quite collectively get all of the pieces of information rambled together. So in the meantime, while she's printing that off, this is also a piece of legislation tonight. Now, if you want to take that time to review this, I would pay specific attention to Section 6 of this.
We're back to 2021.
Yes. Just so you have the opportunity to read it before we have discussion on that particular ordinance. So this is not a discussion of it currently because it's not on the table.
Just
but
6?
I'll be back with you. 6 is the major piece, yes. I'll defer to Thad in the developer's incentive agreement. 6 is the major piece that has the revisions. What's the other minor change that also was applied to that?
In the Economic Development Incentive Agreement, let me get back to my marked up version.
If I remember correctly, Thad, or
Right, I
amounts
have
in my
the,
ear.
I have the marked up version up in front of me.
Okay. I think
So
it's
a couple of
3B.
throughout the document, the JCO abbreviation referring to the Johnstown Land Company is changed to JLC to be a little more intuitive and to reflect the actual name of the LLC as Johnstown Land Company. In the, if you go to page 2 on the second full whereas clause there, there are some revisions made, starting in that parenthetical phrase, excluding residential development is what it says in your packet. In the new version that has been printed off and handed to you, it would say excluding abatements pertaining to residential development. And then it would go on, or mixed-use development as defined below, or so-called school TIFs pertaining to residential development or mixed-use development. In the next whereas clause, this is a change that will relate to the change that's made in section 6. And in the packet version, that whereas clause ends with Johnstown Monroe Local School District. In the printed version that you have, it goes on to say, it goes on to add, while such real property is under its ownership and as a condition of providing any real property tax incentives to a successor in interest of JLC with respect to ownership of any portion of the JLC properties, city agrees that it shall obtain a similar legally binding written commitment from the recipient of the real property tax incentives as a condition of granting the incentives. So that's stating the intention that if another property is to receive a tax incentive, like a CRA abatement, they too will be required to enter into the new community authority. And then finally, as you get down to section 6, which is what Sean referred to specifically, the requirement to join new community authority, that states that prior to being eligible to receive a building permit in each particular portion of their properties.
6, I won't get a copy.
Yeah, that's section 6, it's on page 6. That prior to being able to obtain a building permit on those properties, JLC or any of its successors shall be required to place that property within the new community authority. That the placement shall be evidenced by recording in the office of the county recorder and impose the same, and that the city will impose the same requirement on each owner of additional properties as a condition of providing a tax abatement or other tax exemption. So that marries up with the whereas clause I mentioned before. The next paragraph under that is really just to be as clear as we possibly felt we could be, to say that all of Johnstown Land Company's property in this proposed PD district will be joining the new community authority regardless of whether the particular property gets a CRA abatement. So you'll recall that earlier in that agreement, it says if they're doing a residential or mixed use, they are not eligible for CRA. We wanted to be clear that those properties too must join the NCA so that they will have the 9.75 mils on top of their property taxes. So that outlines the changes that are in front of you in that printed version of that draft agreement.
Okay. And we can come back and discuss this in a moment. Okay. Ms. Monroe handed out the 2023 changes for the compensation agreement. Could we cover those now? What changed?
Yes.
I'm going to defer to Thad since some of these provisions came at the final hour with his advisement. And just for transparency, there has been an ongoing dialogue with the school. I'll hit the happy pieces of this, and then I'll defer to Thad to kind of walk through what you're looking at. And that is, this is really an exercise in a partnership with the school district. And specifically, if there's an abatement for economic development reasons, that we want to make sure that our schools are compensated accordingly. This is an agreement that's consistent in the city of New Albany. It has been part of what we call the secret sauce that has been very, very beneficial for whenever a company decides to locate there. They know the rules of engagement whenever they go in, so it's not a negotiation that takes 5 to 6 months. These are pieces that are in place ahead of time, so it shoves the applicant to the top of the table, or to the top of the pile, I'm sorry, whenever you're looking at Jobs Ohio requests as far as, are we available, do we meet all the other requirements that are a part of that? So that's the feel-good piece of this. The school district will be looking at this November 13th, which is why we've been going back and forth and engaging them in the conversations. We want us to be lockstep as much as possible. Now, they may have some questions according to their board as well, much like you may have some questions, but this is staff and the appropriate lawyers trying to be the pass-through and the conduit to try to make all these things line up. And like I said, kind of getting to the finish line today is why you're seeing some of these, but it's not because we didn't have it prepared, it's because these conversations take time. It's not just an entity in and of ourselves. We're reaching out to the school district, we're being good partners, and the same thing with them. They're reaching out to us and seeing how we can assist each other in what we're trying to achieve.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Sean, what are the substantive changes to the language from what we had ahead to what we were just handed out?
So for the compensation agreement
Yes.
that we're looking at for 2023, correct me if I'm wrong, Thad, but
I'm happy to address those, Sean.
it has to do with the cap, and I'll let Thad kind of take it from there.
Yes, so actually, the cap that you're referring to, Sean, is unchanged from what was in their packet.
Correct.
So it has a maximum amount that would be distributed under this agreement, just to make the schools whole. The substantive changes in this agreement, compared to what is in your packet, is in the paragraph, it's the second paragraph of section 2 that begins, "In the event the school district disputes." That is a provision that the school district requested to add in, which outlines how the parties would deal with any dispute over the amount that the school district would be due. So ultimately, there's a timeline to meet and discuss, and then if they are unable to agree upon a resolution after 45 days, then it goes to an arbitration to figure out what that appropriate amount is under the agreement. That is really the only substantive change. There is a change in section, or the addition of a section 9 toward the very end, which is just additional boilerplate type of language saying that there's no personal liability assumed by undertaking this agreement between the two entities. And then there is what I would call a non-substantive change, but I would just bring it to your attention in section 5. There's a sentence in the middle that goes, "The school district, by adoption of its school district resolution, hereby waives any notice requirements in connection with the CRAs and permitted TIFs." We added language to specify that that is for the Johnstown Land Company properties and additional properties identified in the Economic Development Incentives Agreement, so that those documents speak more clearly to each other.
Should it say JLC?
That should say, yes, indeed, it should.
So we'll just make that when
Yeah.
we make the motion to amend that.
Nothing else?
No.
Okay. So we are open to discussion now on the compensation agreement that was given to us with the changes. Anyone on council have questions or comments?
Yes, I do.
Yes, sir.
So I want to get this kind of straight to myself. So we have the incentive, and so in some particular year, the amount of money coming in doesn't meet what's supposed to happen. So what we bring in, it would be equal to them, basically. We take out of ours to make sure that they get the full amount. Is that correct?
Not entirely. So how it works is on specifically areas that have a tax abatement is what we're referencing here. Areas that obviously aren't tax abated, it's not necessary to have an agreement. The school's made whole already through the property tax associated with the particular parcel. So what we're looking at here is let's say an employment center goes in, they have a number of jobs, that particular piece of property is abated, so the school would then potentially not capture the escalated real estate value at the present moment. And that's where there's a partnership, realizing that that doesn't have any necessarily student impact on the school, but obviously we want to be good stewards and good partners in the conversation. You know, eventually it will. How that works is if you take the entirety of the employment that's happening at that particular site, in our agreement, I believe it's at a 27.5, I'm getting the nod, percent of the revenue that we would capture from the income tax, specifically for those employees with that particular manufacturing job or warehouse job or office job, whatever the case may be. However, that does not mean that if let's say you only have 20 employees and you get 27.5% of the income tax off of that, that does not give you all of the difference between the property tax evaluation that we have to make up the difference. It's just a consideration of a payment for that 27.5% to be made whole. We're modeling this after the New Albany agreements that they have, so it's nothing new. It's nothing really trying to reinvent the wheel here. It's just a copycat version of what's been successful over there, Mr. Merriman.
And it's the improved property value assessment, the difference between what the land currently is being taxed at and the approved amount. Just so anybody that's listening is clear.
Correct.
It's not a complete property tax abatement. It's the difference between.
Huge difference.
It's the difference between.
Right.
The CAUV would be taken off. I mean, you're going to have a stepped-up increase as it is. The school's already going to get a.
If it was farmland and it was under a CUAV, it would go up to a current, and then the difference between what that assessment and the improved assessment is what the schools are getting made whole on, because they received that property tax, the lion's share of it.
And I'm sure there'll be situations where that entirety is made whole, and then in other situations, they may not. And there's also metrics that are in place that if they are getting an abatement, such as with the state of Ohio, if they get any incentives from the state of Ohio, that they have to meet some of these obligations in order to qualify for some of those. So there's a lot of other things that get folded into it if they receive outside monies as well. So those are Turk meetings that exist and other boring conversations. So cover everything.
Any other questions from council? Thank you for that question, Charlie. I'll open it up to the public. Any comments or discussion on this from the public?
Too much going back and forth, even that comprehend without seeing it, so I have none.
Anybody else? Okay, hearing none. What would council like to do with this ordinance?
Make a motion to approve with,
JCO.
with the
JLC.
correction to the language to change JCO to JLC to be consistent with the other documents, and other than that, as written.
Yeah.
I'll
We have-
second.
We have a motion and a second?
That's for 20.
Yes, 20.
Yeah.
2023.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, let me clarify.
Yeah.
I got you all.
Say that one more time.
Let me clarify the motion.
It's 20-23.
Yes.
20-23, and I'll second. Okay.
Charlie Campbell,
Yes.
Nicole Shook,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
John Merriman.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Sharon Hendrick.
Yes.
Okay, now we're going to move to ordinance 21-2023. An ordinance authorized the city manager to enter into a development incentives agreement between the city of Johnstown and the Johnstown Monroe local school districts. Thad had just explained the changes that were made today to this agreement. He discussed those a couple minutes ago. So if you have any questions on that, and Mr. Stainert, if you'd like to explain this ordinance to everyone so they better understand it.
Sure, and I'm going to back up into Thad's corner here. We'd had some back and forth emails. Does this have the modifications necessary for any tweaks along the way, or was that not necessary? I know we looked at the city manager authorization, but the inflexibility in one of the particular pieces, has that been addressed?
In the overall ordinance?
I believe so, yes. Let me pull up the.
So the ordinance as written in the packet says that the agreement is approved as written and presented to council. I believe that was, I see Mr. Merriman's hand going up.
You can do that one. I just
Okay.
have one for you after.
So I believe that the question about that was just to try to ensure that the changes made today would be captured, as well as any changes that the school district may ask for when they consider it, so that it would not have to go then, ping-ponging back to this body.
Exactly, okay. So that's covered in this particular new document that's in existence?
So it's not, no, it is not. It is not covered in the Economic Development Incentive Agreement.
Okay.
So with this ordinance, it could be, if council's will is to adopt the ordinance approving this agreement, then what it would want to do is move with the condition that, non-substantive edits requested by the school district and agreed upon by the city manager could be entered.
And will you be the definer of it's substantive or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I can explain it if we get off track in the proper procedural of it. I'm going to depend on Thad to kind of walk us through the right method. But this is an agreement, and Thad did a tremendous job of explaining all the details beforehand. But I'll try to boil it down into one sentence, and that is an agreement between the city of Johnstown, the school district, and the property development company to basically develop incentive agreement so that we have all these locked into place ahead of time. I don't know if that captures it all or not. I don't know if you can boil it down any simpler.
I would add to it the requirement for JLC properties to join the
NCA.
NCA, which is the linchpin of the agreement.
You good?
Go ahead.
So in 6, the second paragraph that you said there was an edit to, if I'm reading it in the light of what we just talked about, that would include any further properties, or only in this, any further properties they bought that were within inside the city bounds?
Going back to the definition of JLC properties,
For the avoidance of doubt, the requirement for the JLC properties, yeah, that, I didn't know, because you have to cross-reference where they defined it.
those are parcels that are listed in the Exhibit E. So it does not include
Anything else? that's-
anything that they would purchase that's not in existence.
Inside the annexation.
So what happens when a different developer wants to come in this area and develop? How do they fall into these agreements? Do we have to do a new one for them?
So if they already have title to the property, then they would have to enter into their own agreement if they wanted to get a tax incentive approved by the city. If they are purchasing the property from Johnstown Land Company or otherwise acquiring it from Johnstown Land Company, then this agreement requires Johnstown Land Company in their sale contract to require that it be put in the NCA. So it would travel on to the next landowner.
So the compensation agreement we just did is the compensation agreement, it would work for any land purchaser in the area.
It would work.
Like, we're not going to have to come back and do these agreements. Are we going to have to come back and do, like, are we going to have these negotiations every time?
Not for this specific piece of property, but if you have let's say you have a new 300-acre development come in, whether it be Johnstown Land Company or,
Some other guy.
Pulte Homes or whoever the case may be, or some other type of industry coming through the door, if it's a relative piece of property that's not in connection with this, typically on an annexation piece, you would require the NCA or a tri-party agreement be in effect with that specific piece of property. So you would walk through this exercise similarly as you are tonight, maybe not in the exact process, but in a very similar fashion. But as it's related to this specific PD district and the area associated with it, this one will cover all of those respective parcels that have been identified in the 400 and set acres. Is that correct?
Right. The parcel that this would not identify the Port Authority parcel because it is not owned by Johnstown Land Company.
So we'll label this council, Council A. Council B starts in January, Council C is 4 years from down there. So what stops Council A for saying we're doing this agreement with this group? A year from now, a different land company comes in and say we want to develop. What stops that council for saying, hey, we're going to do a different agreement with you? And then 4 years after that, a different council says we're going to do a different agreement. And then we have three, because I know New Albany's kept the same agreement through all of it.
Well, we hopefully stop that as a strong recommendation from
Right.
staff and legal to not do that.
Right.
So,
And I would say that in the compensation agreement that was the subject of the last ordinance, there is a requirement on the city to hold to the NCA requirement for other landowners that would be coming in.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's going to be held to the same and that there's not new negotiations every 3 or 4 years. And then Group A here gets mad because Group C got a different,
Yeah, and the objective here is to set standard, a benchmark. But really, we can only bind at this point the people who are at the table at this point.
Okay. Okay. Does council have any other comments or questions on this ordinance?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Char, are you comfortable with putting that responsibility of accepting non-substantive changes to the agreement on yourself?
I am, because of the fantastic relationship we have with the school district. If at any time I felt things were going sideways outside the bounds in which I believe is consistent with your desires, I would probably bring that back. But over the last 8 months, we've had a tremendous relationship, and it's all about communication. They usually know exactly what we're doing, and we know what they're doing. So if I felt that they weren't aware and there was going to be a curveball at any point, I would be concerned about that. But right now, hopefully it doesn't come back to bite me, but I feel like we should be able to navigate some of the minor details that may arise through this particular document. But again, this document mirrors exactly what's in place and what they've done previously with other entities. So it's not necessarily a new document for them as much as it is for us. This is our first exercise in this particular agreement, but they've been doing this for quite some time over in the city of New Albany, in those lands that have been developed over there. So hopefully that will ease any concerns that they may have, but I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say what one person may bring up that's important to them, but I feel we can navigate it.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll open this up to citizen comments. Hearing none. Comes back to council. Council, do we have any order of business that we want to take on this?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 21-2023. Would this be as amended?
As amended?
Well, yeah, as amended to give the acting city manager authority to make any non-substantive changes agreed to with the school district.
Do I need to repeat it? All right, very good.
I'll second.
Okay.
Nicole Shook,
Yes.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
John Merriman.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Sharon Hendry.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So now if you have your programs out, we're going to move now to Resolution 2023-30, which was a resolution accepting an annexation of 285.93 plus or minus acres, more or less, from Monroe Township, Licking County, to the city of Johnstown. The introduction and public hearing was held on October 3rd, 2023. So we're going to open this up to discussion from council. This would be increasing the size of our city by approximately 20%.
It's very close.
Very close.
To that number. I don't have a specific 21 or 22 or 19.
Yes, so close to 20% added acreage to our city. We had introduced this on October 3rd. We had to do that based on when dates fell, how soon you had to do stuff. It's been tabled since so that we could discuss the PD district. Does council want or have any questions or comments on this?
Now, this is Duncan Plains, Clover Valley.
Correct. This is the 285 acres that are kind of boxed in by Clover Valley, Duncan Plains,
Green Chapel.
Little Green
Green
Chapel.
Page 43 has the
62.
map. Page 43 has
Yeah.
the map.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll open it up to citizens' comments. Okay, hearing none. I would like to make a motion that we move past this on conditional approval of ordinance 19-2023, that this land is then annexed into Johnstown.
Well, conditioned upon
The approval of ordinance 19-2023. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
John Merriman.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard.
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Sharon Hendry.
Yes.
Charlie Campbell.
Yes.
Nicole Shook.
Yes.
Okay. Now, going back to your programs, we're moving to ordinance 19-2023, the big one tonight. An ordinance amending the approval zoning map of the city of Johnstown, rezoning approximately 407.3 plus or minus acres to Planned Development District. So the first ordinance moved it into Johnstown. This ordinance is moving these 407 acres now, so it was 283 or 285 plus additional acres, to put it into our PD district so that it is zoned a specific way.
You nailed it.
Do we have any questions or comments from council? I know different council members had questions, followed up with New Albany Company, MKSK. Any other questions you would like to ask?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I do have a printed out version with minor edits, and I will go over those minor edits with you tonight, but we didn't want to kill any more trees. So this came in at the final hour as well. So I will cover those really quickly, and if I miss any of them, I'll depend on the appropriate parties, such as the applicant or our legal team, to address any things that I missed, but nothing too substantial. One was a reference to somewhat of an HOA. In New Albany, they have white fences, not advocating that that is the solution for Johnstown, but we may want to some type of branding that exists, whether that be wrought iron or brick or some type of black fence. I don't know, whatever the case may be, but there's an establishment that exists in New Albany that maintains that. So bringing that up with the applicant, seeing if that would be something that they would be agreeable to. I'll let them kind of speak about that a little bit later. I don't know that it's written into the text, but there'll be a verbal commitment on that tonight. And then also just some real minor details. I think it's in 2.3. There is an item, if I can pull it up quickly enough. While I'm trying to find it, I'll give you the background.
Hey, Sean,
Sure.
what part of the section was that reference to the HOA in there? Do you know the section of that it was in?
5.5.
Thank you.
Is kind of where I
Is it-
pulled it from.
Okay.
So.
I remember seeing it in there, I just don't remember what section it was under. Thank you.
Sure. Sorry for it taking so long. Looks like in area 2.3, D, item 4, industrial product sales, which includes uses and users that sell, rent, or lease product, equipment, machinery, supply, general intended for industrial or commercial users, was concerned that that leans more towards retail. We have this obviously in a manufacturing, production, and industrial use, so talk to the applicant utilizing only that for maybe wholesale. We don't want to encourage retail type of a sales there, so everyone was agreeable to that. Like I said, these are minor
So we
things.
struck retail.
Correct. Okay.
It doesn't actually say retail, but the use, the words they were using were,
Mine says sales may be wholesale or retail.
Yep.
okay.
So in the
Yes, I
finalized
didn't read that
product, we'll
part.
be scratching
Thank you.
that. And that's in,
It will say sales may be wholesale, but not retail. So
Okay.
it is-
Not, okay.
fantastic. The other piece, so we're not here all night looking for me to find it. If you know where it's at, Thad or Aaron, it is relative to storage units in a specific area. If you have that section available, let me know and I'll reference it. Council can kind of follow along. You have it?
Did we strike that?
Sorry, putting you on the spot. You can feel my pain.
On the marked version, it's on page 7.
You know what I mean?
Is this referring to the definition
Oh,
of
I found it.
warehousing and distribution?
Yes, so page 7, manufacturing, production, I'm sorry, item F, warehousing and distribution use, scratching public storage, meaning facilities that provide interior space for rent to the general public for storage of personal property. So my thought was warehousing, distribution use, not incorporating kind of a storage all place.
Consumer application.
Absolutely, trying to separate the two from more of a consumer use to manufacturing and trying to really plan ahead. So
So the
those,
sentence was struck.
the sentence was struck in its entirety.
So
Okay.
public storage is not allowed there.
Okay.
Gosh, on the same page, so I apologize. Wasn't too difficult. Jamie's just laughing at me. It's been a long day, Jamie. Don't test me. So, any other items that you can think of? Those were the main ones. Like I said, I just wanted to have a finalized version.
Under section, same section, D, it would be 6 VI. where it mentions essential services such as, but not limited to, electrical substations and water and sanitary sewer facilities and infrastructure. I'm not sure what facilities would be provided outside, other than what the municipality provides. So I think I had requested we strike facilities.
Except for substations.
Everybody's good?
Except for
Maybe on the
substations?
Substations.
Substations,
I just want to make it clear that the primary water and sewer is coming from the municipality. There's no ability to construct their own.
And I believe that is identified in the text.
In another place?
I've looked at 5 different versions, probably in the last 5 days. So I do know that it is identified in the updated text that you all have in some capacity that water and sewer utilities will be provided exclusively by Johnstown. I just can't.
That's how we covered it.
Yes, I just can't remember the exact section in which that is. I'm looking at.
Could this include like lift stations? Is that why it could possibly be in there if
It
we
would
have
be
to
a
have lift stations?
facility. Would that be infrastructure? Would be a facility.
I don't know, the lift station would be a facility.
But if you added that language to the final version, that would
Okay.
cover everything that I'm concerned about.
Okay.
And we struck drive-throughs throughout the entire thing?
That's consistent.
Yep.
For each, the language that you're thinking of, Sean, is for each of the sub-areas. It states that except for electric transmission lines of 62.5 kilovolts or larger, all new utility lines, and, for example, sub-area 3 shall be installed underground. Water and sanitary sewer services in this sub-area shall be provided exclusively by the city of Johnstown. And then language of that effect is repeated through each of the sub-areas.
they could put it in and move it somewhere.
Perfect.
With that, I don't have any other things that I would want to cover. I just want to make sure you have the latest and greatest, and with that, I'll kick it back to you all or to the applicant for further discussion, unless you have questions.
Okay, does anyone else on council have comments or questions?
So for retail, wholesale / retail and the industrial, are we disservicing ourselves by not allowing a White Cap or a Granger or a supplier similar to that usually does large industrial, but they have a small retail for users to come in, like?
And I can see where you would want to go, and it's really your preference. If you wanted to say it's an ancillary from the primary, you could
conditional.
word something like that, or conditional.
Conditional.
My concern was more of having a Sunbelt tool rental sitting
Correct.
in the center of the New Albany International Business Park. I don't think that's consistent with the harmony that we're trying to create in that area. And really, we're driving retail into that specific area. And I'm not picking on Sunbelt Rentals. It was just an example that came to my mind. So you could use Power Sales and all the other appropriate equipment leasing companies. And I don't think that's necessarily what the applicant wants either. So that's why it was addressed. But to the Granger component,
Look at you mean like White Cap is 100% located in an industrial area on Groveport, or in Grove, right outside Grove City. And they're there for that reason. right?
There's other
Because-
wholesale places.
Because
There's
you're
lumber and.
because you're gonna
products
stop
that
there
go
and
inside
you're
too.
getting steel, and then you're gonna move down and get your, just, if we wanted to see it as a conditional.
Are there other places in that area where they could build?
I think you're going to have a variety of locations. It really depends on what you're trying to go for.
That's what my
Or
thought
if you're
is.
like a steel yard, are you
You
considering
get
that?
pipe valves. I mean, you go into
I think
every
that's what I mean.
trade's gonna have a distribution.
I mean,
network.
yeah, but are you considering that like,
I think the problem becomes
is
outdoor
Loeb
storage.
is Loeb a retail store?
Outdoor storage, and then you'll get a
Right.
retail element
That's
that'll
what I
come,
mean.
assuming they can buy, and then you're driving.
That's why I just
'Cause
wondered.
if you have like a Hamilton Parker or something like that, they're gonna be all inside, and that's not,
That's why
not a
that's
bad
why I'm
look.
asking if it's, we
Yeah.
should conditional it, if it's something like, again,
I didn't
Suburban
mean to
Steel
go
wants to
down a rabbit
relocate
hole.
in that,
No,
it's an industrial
when you talk
use.
zoning, you go down rabbit holes.
Right, that's an industrial
Right,
use,
yeah.
but they technically sell out of it. Is that retail, is it not?
Aaron Underhill on behalf of the applicant. I would say that it's really, it's a good point you raise, and if it could be, like, if there's a retail component to it, that could be conditional. That'd
Correct.
be great. We're not particularly worried
Right,
about this.
no,
but-
just,
No,
I-
but that would leave the door open, and we just come back and prove it to you that it's
Yeah.
not what you're trying to.
I like that idea better.
I was just thinking like down the road, if not limiting who can be there, right? Like somebody that, like a steel company is a prime example. Like, is that technically retail? I mean,
I think if we leave
No.
retail in there, it opens the door more for what we don't want in there, where if
We can
we don't.
condition, make it
Conditional use.
conditional.
Make the retail component.
Condition, yeah.
There's retail that will
Give
make
that.
sense to be there. PVE suppliers, different things like that, that makes sense to be there.
Okay. Any other comments on council?
The only thing that I wanted to make sure, and I know that there were different versions, and I know that we got one today. I wanted to make sure that all the conditions from zoning carried over. If we can put a small thing in there, just that the conditions from zoning carried over. So I know we had, I think most of them will automatically, but I know we had NCA, we had traffic study, we had, some very basic things. But also, as we were going through this document here, there were some small things that we noticed that may not have been changed. So I wanted to make sure that we just cover those in there as well.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else from council? Okay, I'm gonna open it up for citizen comments. Mr. Main, I'll let you go first, since you've been waiting. Need help?
I can crawl over. Louis Main, 132 North Main Street. On 19-2023, there are a couple of issues I'd like to bring up. First one is you're saying rezoning. It's never been zoned. This is the first time Johnstown's zoned it. So I would think it's not to be rezoned, it's to be zoned. That's number one. Number two is that amending the official zoning map. We hadn't had an official zoning map since the mid-1980s. This is the ideal time to get an official zoning map. There have been many changes in annexation and rezoning properties that do not reflect on the zoning map except somebody colored in a color. Does not meet 1135, chapter 1135 zoning requirements as far as the zoning map. The MH&T did the very last one, which was never approved by Sean's predecessor. So how long ago was that, Sean? And I would think now the ideal time, I'm publicly requesting that you start that investigation and completion of an official zoning map. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louis.
Thank you.
I think an official zoning map would be good. Thad, his question was in there, we're saying rezone, but this area's never been zoned. So should we use zoning instead of rezone?
Do you want me to jump in, Thad, so you can correct me?
I mean, I'll take a stab at it and say I don't think it has legal significance to say zone versus rezone. It is coming for the first time into the city of Johnstown, but it does have, it exists in Monroe Township now, and so it has, the regulations of Monroe Township. I don't see a legal consequence there one way or the other.
Do you want to add anything?
Sure, and it's a nod to maybe what they were looking to do from a rezoning. I know in our current ordinance, anything that annexes in currently immediately goes to agricultural, so maybe that's the reference that we're looking at from an agricultural zoning to a PD district zoning, but I will wait for a full
So in
rebuttal.
theory, since we passed it tonight, that's zoned agricultural right now because it got annexed
In
in.
your ordinance, it
It
does.
doesn't exist until we pass this one.
Right, in your ordinance, it does lean to, so I think it's semantics, but if that is a concern, that may be a reasoning or an explanation as to why it says rezoning. I'm not sure that, like Thad mentioned, that it matters, so.
Okay. Okay. Any other citizens' comments on this? Mr. Barr, if you could come forward, please.
Oh, that's on the top.
Jeff Barr, 181 South Main Street. So to be clear, there will not be storage units there for individual use consumption interiorly, correct?
Yes.
And the only utility would be substation for electric?
The only facility you'll be able to see is substations for electric, water, and sewer would not be there, correct?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lift station. Well, there may
There
be
is one.
One on the far
There may be
end.
one
Sub-area
station which
4.
you'll be able to see through the project.
One.
That's what I believe. There's only one slated for that area.
Do we know the size? Or projected size, estimated size?
Not off the top of my head, but
I'm trying to think.
Jack's
down
calculating.
a minute on that. Was it?
I remember the pump not being needed to be too large because it's got fall. We just got to get it up. It doesn't have to go a long distance up, if memory serves me correctly.
Well, and I am thinking it's gonna be about the size of the Westview lift station. It's gonna be able to move roughly 700 gallons a minute. Am I remembering those numbers
I think so.
correctly? 700 to
Between the two of
1,000
us.
gallons a minute. But the majority of that is, you know, the wet well will be underground, the control panel will be up, and it will be fenced in some fashion. Now, I don't know if it's gonna be a wood fence or if it's gonna be a, woven wire fence, but, Johnstown will have a say in what the surroundings will be.
Okay.
What's the concern?
That,
The
The
lift
fence.
station?
the lift station and what it.
So if we get a data center over there and they have to put an ancillary substation in, you'd be opposed to it?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, that's why I'm asking
No,
what
it's just-
what the concern
Ask
is.
Kind of sizing and
Yeah.
the city has the ability to have the input of that exterior design, how it's secured.
And there's many ways that can happen. It can be the woven wire fence, it can be shrubbery
Right.
around it
Landscaping.
without a fence with landscaping, or it could be a wood style.
I'm guessing, given the developer, they're probably going to have a much, however, if we look at how New Albany hides theirs,
Yeah.
it'll probably be done something.
Softer.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yep. And if anyone doesn't know what a lift station is, it is to move wastewater and sewer up a hill, because most of our city flows downhill to our sewer station. So literally poop can roll down, but when it's below, you have to push it up the hill. So that's what a lift station is.
Kind of like a management position.
Kind of like a management position.
Just comes right uphill.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Did anyone else have questions or comments? I'd like to talk about the PD district. Hearing none.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more.
Yes, sir.
Sean, can you review the final language on how parkland is distributed, accounted for, and including the land bank? Because I think that was a concern of one of the citizens, and I want to make sure we address it.
Sure, and I will try to go from memory. It's in this document somewhere, but, and if I mess up, once again, we have the applicant or Thad to correct me. So per acreage is per, let's see, it's 1,500 square foot per unit. So if you take the units that they're proposed to have, times that by the 1,500 square foot, it roughly comes out to 41.85 acres in totality as far as the units that are currently being proposed. So in this associated PD district area, 41, let's call it 42 acres would have to be carved out for a park to be identified in that area. However, a payment in lieu of can be made. Payment in lieu of is tied to a $45,000 per acre price point, and then that would go into the city's fund, and then the city would distribute that appropriately with the intent for it to go to other park placement in different areas that may be more acceptable. Obviously, anything out that way, you're going to have a higher price point, but if you're looking for a parkland piece, you're not probably going to go to the heaviest, most intense development area. You're going to look in an area that may be softer, that's more around a residential piece or around a school district building that you could lean into. So is that 45,000 the appropriate number? I don't know, but I can tell you whenever the started conversations happened, that was something that was talked about. There is a qualifier in there to an increase in association with inflation after so many years. I can't remember that specific details. I believe it's a 7% from either annually or every 3 years. It gets adjusted upward to accommodate for some inflationary pieces that may exist.
But this will all be hammered out when the final agreement at the,
Correct. So you do not have to decide tonight whether you're going to require park to be there or payment in lieu of. That will be something that happens in a final development piece, just simply because you don't know what that development's going to look like. It could be an opportunity to create value in that development. Typically, developments that are around park have a higher likelihood of long-term success because people tend to want to be around a green space, so that protects the investment of that area, so you have less of a regressionary situation as they know in real estate. So also the other piece of that is what type of park do you want there, active, passive? I think everybody's generally thinking of passive, not to increase the general activity of children in that area, so that we don't have a lot of children maybe habitating there for an impact from the school district. But how does that bend and fold into an additional area that could be carved out? Does it all have to be there? No, I think you could do 15 acres, you could do 30 acres there, and then do some portion of that. But that's all, so as far as final development plan, that would be consistent with the decision.
Just so everybody's clear too, the in lieu of payment doesn't mean that you have to take it all. It could be any combination, a 100% metrics there. You can, there is ambiguity to make whatever in a final, what the city desires at the time.
okay, we're good. Anybody else? Mr. Barr, you can come back, if you could come back up here, please, sir. That way everyone can hear you.
At home.
The applicant was going to answer as to what that timeline would look like.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I would like to hear
Yeah,
his
I'm sorry.
response, please.
Accurate to say it's at least 6 months and maybe a year out because, as we said all along, we want the major employment piece to come out of the ground first, and there's a development plan review per your code. So we expect to count times on where this should be. And ultimately, if there were ever a fee in lieu, which I think there's a misnomer that maybe provided on site, council has all the power to grant a request for the fee in lieu, and they have all the power to tell us, no, you have to